Good afternoon, everybody. On this President's Day, Monday, February 17th, 2025, I've got all of your news for your rush hour ride home, but chances are you're not even working today, although it is one of our biggest days ever on the channel. We are having so many big stories break out, so we're going to jump right into it. On today's episode, a quick Bachelor preview for tonight's episode. Also from Bachelorette, we have Andrew Spencer and his dad getting out of prison after 20 plus years. I'll share what Andrew had to say. Some box office updates, and then the WME boss, Ari Emanuel, versus Justin Baldoni. Boy, is it it is a wild story seeing the class warfare break out between Hollywood bosses and a relatively middle-class Justin Baldoni. And then we've also got a crew member supporting Justin very publicly. I'll share what the editor had to say, and then some thoughts on Trump. For those that think we've got Trump derangement syndrome, I'll be sharing my derangement the final 5 to 8 minutes of this video. If you like my takes and enjoy what we're doing, feel free to hit the subscribe button. And of course, give us your thoughts. We love to hear back from you guys. A lot of topics to get into. Let's dive into it. This is The Rush. All right, I'm going to have your Justin Baldoni story in about 4 minutes or so, but first, here's a trailer for tonight's episode of The Bachelor. To be quite honest, what is this, episode 4, 3? I don't even know. I can't tell if I like the season yet, but I'm watching it. I'll let you guys know. Here is a preview of tonight's season.
I can't help but be grateful just for even being here.
It's mixed emotions because I had a great time on my one-on-one, but I still don't feel like I know him.
Sometimes I just can't believe Carolina. To hear her be so iffy about the opportunity that you had to date Grant.
Carolina, do you want to chat outside with me for a sec?
Yeah, cool. Something has to be said.
What's going on?
I kind of wanted to touch base with you. You were just so vocal about all of the insecurities that you had on the date. You expressed your unsureness about this whole process. If I felt that unsure of who he was as an individual, I would be packing my bags and leaving.
There it is. Coming up tonight, we have the Puerto Rican versus the masshole. Oh boy, that's a couple personalities. All right, maybe I will be tuning in. But you know me, I like to cover the stories that happen outside this show, and one of the more interesting ones is Andrew Spencer. I've interviewed, I think, several dozen Bachelor cast members, and I have to tell you, Andrew Spencer is a special guy. He is such a warm heart, and when you hear his story, you can kind of understand why. This is what he writes. So this is my dad. He's just finished serving his 23-year sentence. I was 6 when he went in, so you can say it's been a while. Life happens to a lot of people, and unfortunately, kids are susceptible to that as well. So many with stories like mine, I never went, why me? I feel God has always had me through it all. I look at my life and it could have been completely different. Thankful to my mom and friends' family who helped shape who I am. If you're a friend or family member, and I emphasize this, keep showing up. You don't know how much value you are adding to that person's life. My goal has always been to be the greatest father to my future kids. To do so, I need them to know that I have forgiveness in my heart. I look forward to building a relationship. Pretty wild stuff. My comment, which I'll share with you, was how happy I am for Andrew Spencer. You've led with such energy and optimism, and I really think you'll make up for lost time. Good luck. I didn't know my dad for 20 plus years, and we were able to heal many wounds before he passed. You've got lots of life and memories to make. I am so excited, not to project onto them, but I'm like, start a podcast. You know what I mean? It's just like, hopefully, life can be so overwhelming. I couldn't even imagine if you spent 23 years behind bars. Could you imagine you go to jail in 2002? At that time, MapQuest was a thing. The Gulf of Mexico existed. I mean, what a wild world to return to. So either way, regardless of what their relationship becomes, I look forward to following it, and good for both of them for having each other. Well, in the box office, Captain America: Brave New World flies to heroic $100 million over President's Day weekend, even though it stinks apparently, despite unfavorable reviews and terrible audience scores. The 35th entry in Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe arrived slightly above projections. Oh, can you believe that? The 35th movie. I don't watch these. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not trying to be a snob. I prefer Give me a cheesy whodunit movie. Give me a little rom-com, something you can have a margarita with. Maybe it takes place in Hawaii. By the way, speaking of takes place in beautiful locations, have you seen the new episode of The White Lotus? Takes place in Thailand this year. And by the way, gotta love Thailand. Any audience out there in Thailand want to let us stay at your home? Let me know. Let's do some Mai Tais. Is that Thai? Anyhow. It's, yet to be seen if the new season of White Lotus is any good, but hopefully it gets better ratings than Captain America. I don't know if you guys are watching Paradise on Hulu, but that's the hit show. That's what you need to be watching, Paradise on Hulu. I don't even want to tell you what it's about. I don't want to spoil it. All right, well, you know what's been spoiled? This whole, eradication of measles, because they are back, baby. And they say this is what happens when you don't get vaccines. They thought measles was gone forever, and it's making a comeback. Have a listen to this.
This is what happens when you do not vaccinate. This is a measles outbreak that began in a very close-knit rural community, Mennonite community that has very low vaccination rates.
Oh, the Mennonites! The Mennonites did this to us.
And unfortunately, we have seen vaccination rates, exemptions rather, for vaccination rates really soar in Texas in recent years.
So overall, vaccination rates have declined, but only slightly nationally. So you're worried about this pocket of high non-vaccination. But talk to me nationally. Are these declining rates a sign that we could see a wider outbreak?
With measles, which is what we know of as being the most contagious infectious disease out there, you need very high levels of vaccination to prevent an outbreak. So even a dip from 95% coverage to 93% coverage can leave you vulnerable to having outbreaks. And I think it's really important to emphasize that the measles vaccine is highly effective. Two doses gets you to 97% protection effectiveness against developing measles infection.
You know what? But the people that they're telling this to aren't going to take them. They think that the vaccine makes frogs turn gay or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't even know what they're thinking these days. But either way, look, my son's not old enough to get his measles vaccination. So what are you supposed to do? Don't sneeze on us, kid. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's scary to go from 95% vaccinated to 93. That means if there's 100 people in one family of 7 doesn't want to get vaccinated, that could be enough for the outbreak. One of the most highly contagious diseases out there that was eradicated. Well, it's been brought back by those dang Mennonites in Texas. So we'll have to see. I mean, the maps have shown that it is being detected in kind of all over the country. So we'll give you updates on that. Hopefully, if we could just have, it would be nice if bird flu could just kill the measles. I don't know if it works that way, like bird flu versus measles, just go head to head. But hey, I hate to make light of it. This is a scary world we live in. All right. Well, we are ready to get into this next topic, and we've got our friend here, Lauren. I think she was the one who broke this story. Our friend Lauren here on YouTube. Editor comes to Justin Baldoni's defense amid alleged leaked HR complaint. I'll have that story for you next. So I met my pal Lauren here covering the Laura Owens Clayton Echard case. She's a psych evaluator and has great insight into the way the mind works in calling BS out. And she was able to come across this comment. So go give her YouTube channel some love. Again, we need to get her subscriber count up to 10K. She came across this comment on Perez Hilton's channel. So he made a video showing the HR complaints that we discussed earlier today. Now, it's pretty widely thought that the HR complaints are bogus because they don't have any dates. Everything's redacted, and it's information that hasn't come from a credible source, and news mags aren't picking it up. Either way, could it be true? Yes, but we have no, it's like, obviously people are kind of looking at things with a sort of skeptical eye. Well, here's what Jackie London had to say yesterday, again, reported by our pal Lauren. I've worked with Justin for many years, and he actually brought me on for this project as well. He wanted to bring me on as another female editor, one that he knows has a history relating to the subject matter that could help with some of those crucial scenes. This is absurd. It's disgusting. This is not not who Justin is whatsoever. I've worked on multiple projects with him. I've met his family. I can assure you none of this is true. This is the first time I'm actually commenting on any of this because this is insane, and I just feel horrible for his family and for his kids. And again, that got 1,500 likes, and a ton of people have seen this. So you're starting to see enough is enough come out from these cast members. Now, could you have worked with him in post-production in the edit bay, and it turns out he also harassed someone? Yeah, absolutely. That could be true. But I also think it speaks volumes that people are starting to come to his side. And of course, we've just shared video of Brandon Sklenar being asked about it on Good Morning America. And while he was previously Team Blake Lively, now he's staying out of it. So people's energy has shifted, and you have to give people a little bit of time and space for that to happen. So what happened over the weekend? WME boss Ari Emanuel was on a podcast called Freakonomics, and he called Justin Baldoni, I guess Justin Baloney. He said he fired Baloney. I don't know if this is a strategy by him to take the pressure off of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, but I don't think it's working. Brian Friedman, power attorney of Justin Baldoni, responded, Mr. Ari Emanuel is notably one of the best agents and clearly the most loyal in Hollywood. As I understand it, Justin hasn't been called Baloney since the 5th grade. Perhaps Ari's perspective would be different if they had ever met in the half-decade they were clients of his agency. Oh, I think that's actually very interesting. That kind of shows how elitist Ari Emanuel is, that he hasn't even met his own client. Ari Emanuel, CEO of William Morris Endeavor, WME, is mocking Justin Baldoni and throwing his support behind Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, explaining why he fired Baldoni from his talent agency. So again, we covered this over the weekend, but now we're finding out from other people. You know, we're getting the rage response from people saying, yeah, this is so messed up in the sort of the class system of him backing the highest dollar, the star power of Blake and Ryan when he might be on the wrong side of history. Here's what Candace Owens had to say.
Speaking of people who just lie, let's talk about Ari Emanuel. Now, you may have missed this. Ari Emanuel is a very powerful guy. He is, you could argue, the most powerful person in Hollywood. He is the CEO of WME. That is the agency that is involved in this lawsuit. Obviously, the agency that instantly dropped Justin Baldoni when she filed her complaint, initially the CRD complaint in Los Angeles. And essentially, I did not know this, he is actually Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' agent. So they are his clients. You have the CEO, chairman of WME and Endeavor, and these are his clients. So Ari Emanuel decided to appear on the Freakonomics radio podcast show. The episode is not dropped. It played on the radio, and it's already broken in the press, but we could not pull the clips yet because they had not yet put it up on their podcast. It's due later today. And he discussed what was going on with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, and I'm going to quote you what he said, the various quotes. He said, quote, I am a ride or die, and they're good people. I've known Ryan and Blake for over a decade. They're really incredible people.
So anyway, we haven't received the audio of that Freakonomics episode yet, but I'm sure it'll be coming out soon. We'll have to see if these quotes make it into the final cut. Here's what Steph with the Deets had to say about Ari Emanuel in his controversial past. Oh boy.
Oh, let's talk about Ari Emanuel, shall we?
Sure.
And Ari, you were responsible for this video because I would have never spoken about you because honestly I didn't really know who you were until you opened your big mouth. This guy is like a huge hypocrite. He's talking about how Blake didn't feel safe, blah, blah, blah. Just wait till you see a mini deep dive of his controversial history. First red flag is that 3 years ago, they welcomed P. Diddy to WME. I literally cannot find a single article saying that WME dropped Diddy, but obviously there are several about Justin Baldoni being dropped. They proudly dropped him and let the world know. But let's also talk about how WME and Ari Emanuel tried to keep an agent who assaulted Terry Crews. WME agent Adam Vanit resigned from the company as part of WME's settlement with Terry Crews over his SA. After the extended legal battle between Crews, Vanit, and the company, the super agency's initial response to Crews' allegations was to sweep the incident under the rug. This incident is where the agent Adam Vanit had groped Crews' groin at a party. According to the Esquire profile on Crews, a few days after he was assaulted, he told Ari Emanuel, co-chief executive of WME, He said, "I was assaulted. We're not talking harassment." In response, Emanuel said that Vineet would lose a lot of money in 30 days and asked if that would be enough for Cruz, who said no. After Cruz went public with the assault, Vineet was placed on leave. And then later, Cruz had brought the legal action against WME, and that was the only reason Vineet formally apologized and resigned, because that was
so you can see here, and again, go follow Steph with the deets for all the info, but you can see here, look, I always say this about corporations, they're psychopathic, they don't feel feelings, right? They're just there for their bottom line. Hollywood is the worst with that, and agents are the worst because they're blood-sucking leeches, right? They just make money off of the talent. But if a talent makes a lot of money, they'll do anything or say anything to benefit that talent. Now, am I saying that these agencies are run like mob rule? Well, not exactly, but it's cutthroat as hell, and culture and the systemic issues that can exist within these companies, people get away with murder, almost quite literally, because there's people making money off of it. So you get to see someone like Ari Emanuel. He doesn't care about Justin Baldoni. He doesn't care about victims. He cares about keeping the company, making a lot of money, and attracting top-tier clients. Wouldn't it be nice if a bunch of actors came together and decided to maybe work with another agency? I don't think that'll happen because everyone's out for themselves, but it would be nice. All right, so that's going to do it for our Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni conversation right now, although I am prepared to make another video today. I mean, there is so much to get to. I'm telling you, there is just absolutely an insane amount of content to get to regarding that topic. So stick with us. Tomorrow could be the crazy day. Mondays are usually slow for whatever reason. It's like drinking water out of a fire hose today. But tomorrow could be the day we get new court documents and maybe some new information, maybe some new accusations, new people on Blake Lively's complaint. If they can find anybody, we'll see how that all plays out. But let's go to our Trump derangement segment. As you know, we are clearly just deranged. And by deranged, I mean we are worried that the Constitution is being lit on fire. Why burn books when you can just burn the Constitution? So coming up next, I'm going to share what came out on Valentine's Day. It is a letter that was written by a prosecutor who, rather than do the bidding of the president, decided to resign. Why this is so important, we'll have that story for you next. So if your goal is to blindly support the elected leader, then this segment might not be for you. But I think my audience trusts me that I'm going to try my best to be as sort of open-minded as possible, which is why this story is so interesting, because I'm going to criticize the Democratic mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. He's being investigated. In fact, he's been indicted, right, with crimes of corruption. Now, are the corruption crimes that big? It's like free flights to another country, and it's some interesting things. But either way, like, rules are rules, right? And either way, the 7th prosecutor in the Eric Adams case resigns and called out Trump's former lawyer in a scathing letter. So Donald Trump wanted to have his Justice Department tell the prosecutors, don't look into Eric Adams, in part because they were hoping Eric Adams would help further their political agenda, which is not how the system is supposed to work. Here's the response from the prosecutor. And by the way, why this is interesting is everyone's saying, oh, these woke judges are getting in the way of whatever, and it's this, all this nonsense. But this is not a woke prosecutor by any means. So they, in their resignation letter, they say, there is a tradition in public service of resigning in a last-ditch effort to head off a serious mistake. Some will view the mistake you are committing here in the light of their generally negative views of the new administration. I do not share those views. I can even understand how a chief executive whose background is in business, talking about Trump, and politics, might see the contemplated dismissal with leverage as a good, if distasteful, deal. But any assistant U.S. attorney would know that our laws and traditions do not allow using the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials, in this way. If no lawyer within earshot of the president is willing to give him that advice, then I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion, but it was never going to be me. Please consider this my resignation. It has been an honor to serve as a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. Yours truly, Hagen Scotton. Now, why this is interesting is This dude served in the Army for 9 years, 3 combat tours. He's got such a great pedigree of supporting the country. Graduated from Harvard Law School. After that, he was a law clerk for Brett Kavanaugh, a Supreme Court justice. Then a judge when he was a judge at the U.S. Court of Appeals. He also was worked for conservative Justice John Roberts of the U.S. Supreme Court. So this guy is not woke, or whatever term they want to throw on him. This is somebody with a backbone who says, you won't push me around or any of my colleagues around. This is standing up against the weaponization of the judicial system. Here's what Dan Carlin had to say, the podcast host of Hardcore History. Again, a historian, someone who knows a lot about our country. He had to say this: I wonder how many Americans who consider themselves politically aware could pass a civics test about how our government is supposed to function. I wonder how many Americans who ostensibly talk about politics as part of how they make a living could. Our anti-education, anti-knowledge culture has come for our constitutional society, and people who consider themselves patriotic celebrate dismantling the very aspects of our framers' work that those exquisite-minded guys were most proud of. Co-equal branches of government and checks and balances, not bugs, but this system's greatest features. We are a politically hypocritical society, and this will cost us. Could you imagine if the Biden, Harris, Clinton crowd were doing and saying the sort of things Trump is saying now? How many of you Trump fans would be ready to take to the streets? That's what the Second Amendment is for, Dan. How many times have I been told that by the defenders of our Constitution? For 40 years, you've been saying it to me. So it's only a problem if they're doing it. One side gets a pass at assaulting the constitutional wall that protects us all, and the other doesn't. How many of you would say they're only joking, or don't worry, it's a negotiation position if Kamala Harris said these things? Serious question. You'd be just fine with it? No big deal? I'm sure the right-wing talkers ecosystem would be too. All of this is going to come back to bite us. All of it. We are short-sighted, propagandized political hypocrites, and we simply refuse to apply the same standards to both sides. And while I'm ranting, half of this problem is the fault of the Democratic Party. I've never seen such a toothless, feckless, directionless, passion-free group of poor political candidates in my life, and I was of voting age in the Mondale Dukakis years. Only their most radical wing shows any passion of life at all, and that's the group that absolutely, positively can't win a general election. When the great historian in the sky writes about this era, the other party in a two-party system deserves a ton of the blame too. Everyone over 70 years old in that party should resign right now. What Trump is trying to do in our system now is exactly what the founders designed safeguards to prevent, and that's why Trump is targeting those safeguards. So anyhow, here's a clip about another historian warning that we are in uncharted territory.
The point of the United States of America, as Thomas Paine said, is that in America the law would be king. Now, I am not going to naively or sentimentally sit here and say that no American president in history has ever gone beyond the bounds of the Constitution in order to govern. They have always followed the letter of the law. That is not true.
And of course, this commentary comes after the tweet Donald Trump made where he said, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," ominously warning us that he's about to do some corrupt shit.
Danger we have here is that if, in fact, President Trump believes that anything he does is justified, then we are in a place where we genuinely have not been before. Having presidents who have violated the letter and even at times the spirit of the Constitution, the Declaration, is something we have had before. Sometimes we view it well, which I think Lincoln ultimately is redeemed by saving the Union, by when he suspended habeas corpus, shouldn't have done it. Ideally, did it. Union survives. We still go to the Lincoln Memorial. But some of the dark chapters that presidents then have to endure for all of history, the internment of the Japanese Americans during World War II, is something that Franklin Roosevelt's administration always has to bear. And that was a violation of the spirit of the Declaration and the Constitution. To me, that's the question, are we doing things, is President Trump doing something that if it's in a particularly vociferous way, is it justified by the circumstances, or is he doing it simply because he can?
And my true thought is that there's a lot of people that are, Republican and conservative, that are constitutionalists, that really believe in the Constitution. And it's my belief that they thought a lot of what Trump was saying were jokes and not to take it seriously. And now we're finding out. It's the find out stage of fuck around, find out. And if Trump is so willing to tweet that anything he does is above the law, I do think there will be a large majority of people that fight that notion. But boy, has he made it clear that he's going to blame the Democrats for everything bad that's going on right there. At what point do people say, you know what, you're the guy in office now? Egg prices, inflation, interest rates, you're the guy in office now. So let's stop focusing the blame on who was there before. And this is a mandate, so they say, although Biden beat Trump in his last term in a greater margin than exists now. So I wouldn't call it a mandate. What did he win by 1%? Either way, the point being is that I think these dangerous times are now being digested by a lot. And even though some will call it Trump derangement syndrome, these historians, these conservative prosecutors that are issuing a stark warning are not just woke, crazy people a crying wolf. So that's where that stands. And we are in unprecedented waters as we cover all of this. And my guess is what Trump doesn't realize is the populace is ready to fight back. Whether he actually is able to get the justice system to do his bidding, whether or not he follows the rules, the public is here to defend the Constitution. That's what I'm voting. Or that's what I'm betting on. Anyhow, we'll have to see. I'll be here to cover it all. I saved this topic for the end because it's a little too heavy for people. But hey, this is no longer about like fighting with your relatives on Thanksgiving about what they think. It's about does this experiment called democracy, does this thing make it out of this current situation? Yet to be seen. I have faith. But it's going to take folks like myself and you guys to continue to talk about it and treat both sides fairly and say, we are giving this administration a giant pass to shit all over the Constitution. And I think, even though it's only been a few weeks, people are starting to say, no, that ain't it. All right, folks, let me know what you think. And I got a lot of content coming to you tomorrow. Tuesday is going to be an incredibly wild day if it wasn't already as crazy as it is. I mean, today we had tons of, what do we have? 5 videos today? Unbelievable. For a holiday, President's Day. Tomorrow, going to be just as crazy. We'll see you then. I'm Dave Neal. This is The Rush.